Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and today it is time for a professional match of StarCraft 2. It's time for a Zerg versus Zerg. Spawning here on the left-hand side of Automaton and playing with the red Zerg drones. He's from Poland and he goes by the name of Elazer. And his opponent on the right-hand side playing with the blue Zerg drones. Of course, he's from Finland. He's the reigning world champion of StarCraft. We are looking inside of the main base of Serral. So this should be an awesome match. Serral, of course, considered to be one of the strongest players that we have in StarCraft 2 right now. Elazer, still a top-tier Zerg player as well. Interestingly enough, even though Elazer is considered to be amongst the very best Zerg players that we have in Europe, when it comes to map score, these two players have faced off in tournaments against each other quite regularly. But when it comes to map score, Serral is favored 39-12. However, in match score, and that's even more ridiculous, Serral is favored 15-2. So over all of the series that they've played throughout their careers, Serral has won 15 out of 17 matches, which is the equivalent of 88% win rate. That's pretty insane. That's pretty insane, especially because a lot of people for the longest time were talking about Zerg versus Zerg like it was a matchup that required some sort of luck and you just sort of had to gamble. And, you know, if you were going for a hatchery first, like for example we see right here, you would just sort of go down if your opponent was cheesing. And there was a little bit of rock, paper, scissors going on. But I think over time, we have learned very well that Zerg versus Zerg is by no stretch of the imagination luck-based at all. Even though both players make units that deal a lot of damage and don't have a lot of survivability, if your micro is better than your opponent and your scouting is on point, you can certainly get some really, really big advantages. It's actually pretty funny. There's a lot of Zerg players over in Europe, and because of that, if you want to shine, right? If you want to participate in the WCS circuit and you want to do a good job participating in the European events, you basically have to go through like 1,000 Zerg players. There's just simply so many of them. So if you ever want to make a name for yourself and you are located in Europe, you're definitely going to have to work on your Zerg versus Zerg as much as possible, because these guys, they do not mess around. Anyways, hatch gas pool here from both players. There's obviously going to be a little bit of variety from here on out, but generally speaking, I can cast most of the Zerg versus Zerg early game just by knowing the map and then also, I guess, the production tab. I mean, production tabs usually look quite even. There's sometimes a bit of a gentleman's agreement where neither player really decides to make any kind of units early on. In this case, though, Overlords, of course, here for Elazer will see that blue Zerglings are already making their way across the map. But neither player is really too bothered by that because already third hatcheries are coming up. The real deviation usually in the early game comes from the amount of drones that are left in gas. Both players this time around look like they will favor leaving 2 in the gas for now, which does allow them to get a really quick Zergling speed upgrade, still a properly timed third base, but then also a quick Baneling nest, just in case the opponent wants to get aggressive. You can get about 4 Banelings out if you leave 2 drones in gas right here by the time that the Baneling nest finishes, and that way you should be in a pretty good defensive position. Elazer just checking around the clock right here, trying to figure out if maybe there's something morphing in the right-hand side of the map. Obviously, we, as the observer, know that that is not the case, but you better cover all of your tracks, because this matchup can get very, very dicey really quickly. Alrighty. Now, one of the things that I think makes Serral such a scary opponent is that he basically always manages to get the scouting information that he needs. This time around, though, he's not scouting with a speedling right when Metabolic Boost finishes, and that means apparently that he wants to play a little bit more aggressively. Elazer, though, already has a couple of defensive Banelings available as well. Gets one nice connection there, but there's still a lot of Banelings here for our Zerg player in blue as well. Queens, though, target firing it down absolutely perfectly. 2 of them get picked up for basically free. There's still a couple of them remaining as well. Queen in the main base, though, should be able to pick up the last one there as well. Beautiful snipes there. And Elazer cleans that up with ease. That was really well done. That was by no means, by the way, an all-in right there for Serral. He was droning behind that. But that's the kind of stuff that I mean, right? If Serral were to do that push against, like, a lower-level Zerg player, right? If he were to do that push against me, I would probably lose just to those couple of banelings. I mean, I like to think I'm pretty good at ZVZ, but you have to be so on point with the target firing right there of the queens. You have to make sure you don't target fire too much, because then your links get, or rather your opponent's links can surround the queens and they don't have enough range. It's a really complicated micro scenario, and you have to judge the amount of drones that your opponent makes during all of that as well. Elazer making a really solid, educated guess right there. Manages to go up to already 43 workers right now. He even goes up to 47 here, which is really nicely done. He recognizes, okay, that was just a small little pressure force there from Serral. I'm not gonna be intimidated by him just because he's the world champion. I'm not gonna be too bothered by that push. I'm not gonna overmake defenses. Instead, I realize what he's doing. I'm gonna go ahead and just create drones as a follow-up, because that's what he is likely trying to pull off there as well. And because of the value that your queens get in the early game, you can see right there that Serral definitely lost more units than his opponent. And that's those small advantages. In a game of drones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground, right? I know I've said that time and time again, but seriously, this is 100%, right? If players trade evenly, it's 100% of the time going to be a game of drones. It's really critical that you make more workers than your opponent, because the more you have, the easier the matchup will become here as well, the longer that the game goes on, just because you get more income. Anyways, even though there was a little bit of a skirmish here in the early game, it looks like we are gearing up right now for the mid game. Elazer getting himself Pneumatized Carapace. We see the same actually happening right now for Serral on the other side of the map too. But there's already one Dropper Lord here available. I wonder if maybe Elazer wants to go for some Overlord drops. Maybe some Baneling drops into mineral lines. Maybe he wants to go for some more aggressive pushes. Drop some Roaches in your opponent's main base while pushing at the same time with your main army. All of those moves are really, really solid. And it looks like for now, indeed, that is going to be Roaches loaded up into that Dropper Lord. Now, since there's not a lot of early game anti-air, right? Hydras and Mutas and whatnot usually don't come into play until at earliest a couple minutes from now in your standard macro game. Overlord drops actually are really, really annoying to deal with, and if you're good at microing it, you can obviously push and do a lot of damage here at once. So I think Elazer is making up right now to maybe do like a bit of a roll with the Banelings towards the third base, push at the fourth base of Serral, and then also drop off Roaches inside of the main. He's gonna try and test the multitasking right here, I think, of maybe one of the best multitaskers on the planet. Oh, he's actually gonna load up Banelings. I love this. Really cool. Alright, let's see how Serral is going to be able to defend against this, because Elazer is looking mighty fine so far. He did go ahead and grab himself that fourth base here too. Roaches are going to be able to unload right now inside of the main base. Banelings are currently loading up towards that Overlord at the third base as well. And while Elazer is not pushing just yet, he wants to try and be as annoying right here as possible. Serral, though, already anticipating this move. He's got a Spore Crawler ready to go, and even though Banelings will unload... well, yeah, okay, alright. It wasn't the jackpot that he was looking for, but he certainly still managed to get a nice little bit of work done. Also, Corrosive biling down that Overseer. And if I can be honest with you here, it is certainly Elazer dominating these first 8 minutes of the game. Not really missing a beat. I mean, Serral's good enough right there to have a... Who the heck builds a Spore Crawler there? Is that something players do? I guess he knew that that might be an option. Maybe this is something he only does against Elazer. That's such a randomly placed Spore Crawler, right? That's literally just there for Overlord drops. Anyways, even though Elazer didn't do a lot of damage here so far, you can see that small advantage that he's taken in the early game has built up to a really good advantage right now in the mid game as well. He's already maxed out. Serral only sitting at 170 supply right now. He does have a lot of gas left in the bank, but here we go. The Roach Wars are beginning. Roach Wars usually last for a very long time, sometimes the entirety of the game. Both players trying to get the perfect corrosive biles. I think the concave right here slightly in favor here for Serral, our blue Zerg. Obviously, he also does have that defender's advantage. Both players trying to deal as much damage as possible with those corrosive biles. At the same time, though, Elazer only really fighting with part of his army. He decides to push with a smaller force towards the fourth base. Decided not to actually purposely finish up that fourth hatchery just yet. Instead, he wants to continue fighting here. Sets up a concave with some of those reinforcing red roaches too. And even though he purposely decided not to get the hatchery, I wonder if that's maybe a little bit of a gamble. He's going to try and retarget it down right now, but actually the roaches managed to clean that up. And while Elazer didn't want to fight off against the Brutelings, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? This hatch is as good as dead. Even though he didn't want to fight the Brootlings, he's gonna have to send more units in right now through that blue meat grinder, as Serral keeps the hatchery alive. At the same time, though, those Roach drops inside of the main base are back as well. Elazer is trying to hit at every single angle at once. Serral is holding on so far, but the supply counts do not lie. It's really difficult to come back in these kind of scenarios, by the way, if you are Serral. I mean, the thing is, he does still have good economy, but he's playing basically 3 base versus 4, right? As long as this hatchery dies here. I mean, that's 1 corrosive ball from dying. Elazer is going to be in a really good spot, because then he's going to be ahead economically, upgrade-wise, and he's also going to be ahead army-wise. And there we go. 4th hatchery does fall. Defender's advantage right now, though, here in favor for Serral. That means that his units just simply spawn a little bit closer to the engagement. One of the things that I've noticed on Serral's play over the last few months is that he's really narrowed down the control on Roaches and Ravagers in these Roach Ravager fights. Next time they clash, right? Try and pay attention to the minimal unit movement that he does to dodge corrosive piles. A lot of players will like grab small clumps of army and then try and move them out of the bile range. Serral oftentimes moves around 1 or 2 units to just get barely out of the range right there of the corrosive piles, and it's really insane. In big battles, I noticed this against Dark and against Sue recently. I think this was a WESG and Katowice. He manages to just simply out-micro really heavily a lot of those top-level Koreans just by being extremely efficient with his Roach control. I hope he's going to pull something like that off in this game as well. We'll see. Looks like the next fight, though, will be taking place here. Corrosive balls are landing everywhere, but they're really good at just simply dodging it at the last possible second. Nice little bit of drop micro right there once again by Elazer. Serral, though, left a couple of Roaches behind, and it looks like he's going to be able to be A-okay here for the time being. Trying to bait those units to walk into their own corrosive balls as well on both sides. Serral does have more Ravagers right here than his opponent. He does still have defensive Roaches coming up as well, but Elazer, he does just simply have a lot more units here, right? Finally, a couple more reinforcements move up from down towards that 4th base of Serral, and it looks like finally he manages to get this hatchery up and running at a reasonable time. Still, though, Roaches once again being a nuisance here. Spore Crawler is going to make its way over there as well. Obviously, Spore Crawlers are also detectors, so if there were some, for example, some burrowed micro, there we go. Elazer is going to go ahead and grab himself that Roach Tunneling Claws upgrade. If they do plan on going for some Burrow Micro, actually, these Spore Crawlers are going to be quite helpful. I think there's actually only one. But they are going to be quite helpful because they can indeed detect those Roaches underground as well. How does it work? Nobody knows. It's magic. One of the top 10 things science can't explain. Another thing that science can't explain is how Serral is still holding on here, while being pretty far behind in supply earlier in battles with the same amounts of units. Oh, he's gonna fight this army right here on the left as well. It looks like Serral will finally be able to max out here, but the thing is that bank is still heavily in favor right now of our red Zerg player. He's just simply mining a little bit more here for quite a little bit of time longer as well. 500 minerals or so a second, or rather a minute more for the player in red, and that's gonna put him into a really nice economic advantage here the longer that this game goes on. Solid corrosive balls though by Elazer, connecting with some of those Roaches right there on the right-hand side. Still, Serral's running away right now with mostly just Ravagers, but it looks like the majority of that red army is still caught out on the map. Reinforcement should be able to clean up the rest of that Elazer force as well. Serral's actually grabbing a really good victory right here in the engagement, right? Microing several different fights at once. Still though, while the fight on the left is certainly won there by Serral, the one inside of the 3rd base I think was in favor here of Elazer for a little while, but now the reinforcing units do come up. We do see the Tunneling Claws now coming into play. Elazer is going to split up all of those units and head over towards the natural with a couple of the burrowed Roaches, then a few towards the main as well. Serral anticipating this move as well though, he decides to at the very least bring one Overseer here to clean up the Roaches in the main, and he will likely clean up the units at the 3rd base here as well. Another Roach though, being an absolute baller, feels really cool, decides to go after some of the drones over here at the 3rd, and once again a couple of those workers do fall. 23 drones actually were killed by Elazer in the grand scheme of things. I think most Zerg players at this point would already fall over and then die. At this point though, Serral is still not crumbling under the pressure. While he was very significantly behind after that early game, right now I'm looking at the supply counts. Both players are nearly maxed out. Serral has managed to stabilize here. Upgrades are looking pretty even. Income-wise, I think that Elazer is still in a good spot because he's mining a little bit more, but this is going to be a little bit awkward. A lot of units will be intercepted right here by Elazer. At the same time, there's a push right here from Serral on the left-hand side, picking up a lot of the reinforcing units here for Elazer as well. Serral is going to look like he wants to push forward a little bit more, decides to move against that instead, and yeah, he's not going to fight the majority of that army. At the same time, though, Elazer is making a move across the map. Those Roach Wars, man, they are happening basically all over the map right now. Units also moving towards that 4th base here. And Serral finally will be able to get some proper damage right there on Elazer's economy as well. Elazer, though, at the same time, sneaks a lot of units inside of that main base as well. There's a few of them hanging out right now at the 3rd base, too. Drones now being burrowed, so I guess that's going to make things a little bit easier. But Elazer is smelling blood in the water. He wants to move forward right now and obtain the victory right here, right now. A lot of units currently from Serral are distracted inside of that main base. Both players dodging corrosive bows at several different fights. And Serral, while still dealing a little bit of damage on the other side of the map, he's managed to clean up most of the aggression from those red Zerg units. And somehow, some way, Serral manages to hold on right there. He managed to even grab a supply advantage right now. And right here, Serral's like, okay, I'll eat those corrosive balls. That's just a couple ravagers left over. That's that soft underbelly that I was looking to engage into for a little while already. He's going to be able to push forward here and pick up quite a lot of those free red corrosive bowel machines. Did he just actually... Dude, there were units everywhere. I mean, units still are everywhere. There were like 4 or 5 fights happening at once. And I think Serral won all of the engagements. That is insane. How the heck do you... Alright. Anyway, Serral now going for a switch as well towards Hydralisk. So we do see the Hydralisk speed upgrade. Notice, by the way, how late that is coming up. We really don't see players getting that really quickly anymore. Roach Ravager battles are the name of the game. Lots of splits here left and right, but that hatchery is starting to run dangerously low. And I think with a couple more units target firing it down, it should be able to get picked off as well. Serral, though, sitting up an absolutely beautiful concave there. Concaves obviously do beat convexes. They're just simply superior geometrical shapes. But at the very least, Serral gets more service area on those units as well. The 4th hatchery falls. He doesn't care about fighting the Broodlings, although I think he might just overextend a little bit. But 16 drones do go down in the grand scheme of things here as well. Elazer managed to get, during all of that, a couple of roaches across the map. Reinforcing units here for Serral should be able to get that one down as well. But even just a couple of Hydras at this point, yeah, that is really nicely done. Because those Hydras are going to be able to kill all of the Overlords. And while Elazer was pretty far ahead there, right? A little bit ago. Serral did Serral things. He pulled a rabbit out of a hat. He waved his magic wand. He's like, badoof. All of a sudden, I win all engagements that are happening. I mean, it's hard to really pinpoint what went wrong there for Elazer, right? I feel like he made all of the right moves. It's just that Elazer just... I guess he lost all of those engagements, which is pretty insane. Hold up. Can we have a look at the APM? That's ridiculous, okay? So Serral had 481 APM on average over the last 17 or so minutes. Elazer had 475 APM on average over the last 17 minutes. Hold up, let me do the math. All right, so that is just a little over 8 buttons on average per second throughout this game. From both players. It's, man, it's hard to really say what went wrong there, though, for Elazer, right? So he sent units all over the map. He target fired down a lot of drones. He managed to get a ton of worker kills there as well. But then Serral found that engagement over at the 4th base of Elazer. And since Elazer had a lot of units committed towards the other side of the map, I guess in the end, since Serral won most of those small engagements as well, he won most of those really small skirmishes. Eventually, he managed to do a lot of economical damage there to Elazer as well. And, I mean, it turns out the finisher once again obtains a victory. What a beautiful game there by him. I really thought he was losing this one. Not gonna lie, I really thought he was gonna lose that. But apparently Serral does not really crumble under pressure. I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as I upload more. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Links to that are down below in the description of this video. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you once again in the next one.